Hey folks, it's Lauren from Snowy's here with the Zempire Aerospeed 6. We're going to run through the features.
Hit it.
It's a super fast setup in under 2 minutes with a dynamic storage bag to keep all your gear organised. It sleeps up to 6 people or ideally 4 with room for all your gear. Hold up, to make sure you don't miss any of our awesome content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get back to it. So your tent will come in this storage bag here, and fully packed it weighs just under 11 kilos, around about 10.8 kilos, and measures in at about 59 centimeters long by around 30 centimeters in diameter. Now I love, storage bags seem to always be a bit of an afterthought, but I love how Zempire's come up with a cool way to pack this tent that I haven't seen with any other brands before. So this is a flap that when your tent's packed up, it rolls on the outside. And we've got a couple of storage pockets, and that is because this pump here collapses down. Check out more of that in our set up and pack away video, but they all store in place like so, all those components, and our pegs go into this pocket here as well. Now the reason why that is such a cool thing is because it allows the tent to roll up and reduces that overall pack size, keeping it nice and compact. So we've got a couple of cinch straps as well on the bag here, which helps pull it in and make it even smaller. We've got a heavy duty webbing carry strap on the end of the bag. We've also got another heavy duty and very well reinforced carry strap on the outer side of the bag, as well as this adjustable shoulder strap, which you can either, adjust right down really low or open up really high. And it's also removable as well, which I'm assuming at like nylon with a like spring catch connection there, which again feels really robust. It's not like those ones are gonna snap off anytime soon. So moving on to the setup dimensions of the tent, not taking into consideration the guy rope, because that will obviously change depending on how far you peg them out. But the footprint of the tent itself is 3.2 meters wide, going to 4 meters from this front point of the vestibule here, running all the way back to the furthest point of the vestibule peg point at the rear. Externally at the top of the tent, it's 205 centimeters or just over 2 meters tall at the peak on the fly there. Now moving on to the materials of the tent, and the big one obviously is our actual fabric. So this is a Dura-Core, Zempire's Dura-Core polyester. It is an environmentally friendly material. It's manufactured with as minimal impact to the environment as possible, low water usage and all that sort of stuff, but without sacrificing Zempire's known quality in their materials in terms of durability and longevity. The other really nifty thing about it is it's super highly UV resistant, which is important for us Aussie campers, especially in our hot summer sun. So the fly itself is a ripstop polyester. It's the Dura-Core, but the ripstop version, which you can see here with the black thread woven through. Ripstop essentially just means that this material is going to be less susceptible to rips or tearing. And if there is ever any compromise in that material, it's not just going to keep spreading. It's also fully seam sealed. It's got a 5,000 mil waterhead rating. So just as an example here, you can see that where our stitching line is, that's got the nice big strong seam tape over the top of it. And potentially the light here as well is going to show you on the underside of the fly material a bit of a sheen, which is that waterproof coating. Coming onto the inside of the tent as well, again, we've got this Dura-Core polyester, but it's not a ripstop version, but it is a slightly darkened material, which whilst not a fully darkroom coating, which means that during the day you will be able to see without a light, which is actually handy, but it will block out some of that light and give you a little bit of an extra sleep in compared to tents without any additional darkening. And we've got some mesh panels here on the front door, which are also on the windows as well, but I'll get into that a little bit more. Now, whilst we're just under here, I will show you the air poles in the tent here. Now this one is just a crossover. It's just like a typical sort of dome pole structure, I guess, with just 2 main poles that cross over at the top. And that's a 90 mil or a 9 centimeter in diameter air pole. And it's all in one setup here with the inner and the fly connected to the pole, which contributes to it going up so quickly because you don't have the addition of adding the fly at a later point. And the only other sort of pole that we have in this tent is a brow pole. Now this is the same on the front and the back of the tent. And this is made made from an 11mm thick aluminium. And we've also got these reinforced patches here, which I'm pretty sure they're like a PVC coated material here for where that brow pole sits on the frame, and it just protects the materials and the air pole itself from any sort of rubbing in there, which is an excellent consideration. Now, a couple of other cool little nifty features we've got here, Zempire zipper pulls, which are glow in the dark, always handy when you're doing a run to the toilet at night. And we've got a couple of reinforced webbing points. Now, this is for some accessories that you can check out in another video, but we've also got these reinforced webbing points on the guy rope. And we've got some Velcro things here along our zip lines. Now, this is going to be along the front and the back vestibule areas, which helps to stop that zip from sort of working its way open if you're camping in some windy weather, which is always super handy. Something I really like that Zempire have done with this tent is to add in some webbing tensioners for your vestibule here, but also at the base of all 4 pole corners as well. It's a really handy addition to work into a tent when the fly is attached to it and it all goes up all in one, because it can help with fine tuning the tension on the fly, which is a really important component of condensation and also rain management as well. So moving around to the side, we've got a couple of guy ropes, as you can see. Now, this guy rope here is like a dual or a double point guy rope here with a single peg point in. Also really nifty because it's reducing the amount of pegs that you have to use for your tent. It's also reducing the amount of guy ropes that you're going to have in your space around the tent. But it's also really handy to give a good tension across the whole vertical of the tent wall here, as opposed to just having one point that pulls out at the top or further down in the tent. And that's going to give you a nice good shape to the tent, as well as a nice good shape for water runoff on the fly as well. So those guy ropes, you'll find exactly the same on all 4 corners of the tent on both sides. We've also got a third guy point on the sides of our tent above the window here. This one's really great, again, to help keep the shape of the fly, which is especially important in winter if you're expecting rainy weather, or even condensation management as well. However you tighten or loosen that can create sort of like a drain point for you. Now, Zempire's sliders on their guy rope are a nice sort of lightweight anodized aluminium, and it's just a really simple triangle shape. So in this position, it's locked off, but if we want to adjust it, it's just a simple matter of twisting that triangle and then running the rope through the slider like so, which will then pull back into that lock position just naturally by the tension of the rope. Now, we do also have, as you can see on the end of the brow poles here, a really considered design option, in my opinion personally, is these little finger holes. So when you're putting the brow poles in, whether that be to remove them or installing them, that second side is going to require a fair bit of tension. So being able to just pop your finger in that loop and really pull back to lock that brow pole in is actually quite a thoughtful component there, which is great to see. The side, obviously, you can see that Zempire have opted for a fly cap here, which contributes to the overall pack size and weight of the tent being quite low and small. The inner of the tent has the same waterhead rating as the outer. So in terms of the fly cap, there's not going to be any question for the sides of the tent here to be waterproofed. There is a little half zip that you can see along the edge here, which is for the wall kit accessory, if that's what you choose to add on here. But in terms of waterproofing, there's no real benefit or disadvantage, I should say, no real disadvantage to having this open here from a waterproofing perspective. So moving on to the back half of the tent here, we have our rear vestibule, which is a little bit different to the front. We'll follow up on that one shortly. But we've got this single zip point entry at the back here. Again, we've got our little Velcro tabs that keeps that zip nice and locked down in place if you've got some wind sort of shaking your fly around and working so the zip can't work its way open. You've got your 2 elastic bungee points here as well, which is really handy because if you only want to undo one half of the back door, you can keep this half of the vestibule pegged off. You might want to do that for gear storage, maybe add a bit of privacy, but you want some airflow through the back of your tent. You've got a couple of different configurations here, but alternatively, opening this fully up, we can roll our rear vestibule open and tied off with the toggles here. Now these are really cool. These little door toggles are really cool because as you can see on the underside here, they are reinforced with like a PVC coated material, which is also a seam sealed. And we've got this really heavy duty ripstop polyester, which is attaching this super stretchy bungee loop to wrap around on to keep this vestibule in space. The reason why I think that's pretty cool is because little features like those bungee cord and loops for stowing away windows or like vestibule doors and things like that often tend to be a bit of an afterthought, but it is a bit of a mark to Zempire there of how well and how sort of deeply they've thought through the design of this tent. So moving around to the other side, we've pretty much got a mirror image of what we've got from side to side in the tents with the 2 brow pole connections and our 3 guy rope points here as well. Now our vestibule at the front here has a couple of eyelets at the base on either corner. So you can, with additional awning poles, it doesn't come with any, but if you pick up a couple of extra awning poles, you can set this up. We don't have any, but I'm just going to hold it out here to just give you a bit of an idea of how that's sort of going to look and how far out that awning's going to come if you're pegging out your vestibule flap here like so. But otherwise, if you're not keen to set up your awning, it's just a matter of rolling that material, tuck that up and away. And again, these are ultra cool bungee loop and toggle things for tucking that out of the way, like so. So I mentioned before the little sort of mesh panel on the door here, but you notice that it doesn't go the whole way down. So I'll just leave you on the outside here while I pop into the tent. Now what we've got here on this front door, instead of having to manage 2 separate panels, a mesh door and a solid door, Zempire have put in this essentially, I guess you could call it a barn door. So it's a mesh upper, and the cool thing about this is that it allows you to have an open window and some open space and a lot of ventilation, but still maintaining your privacy by not sort of being able to see on the underside here. It's really nifty if you want to have like an afternoon nap or something like that. But otherwise, the door itself has a really cool zip function because as you can see, it's a huge, big circular zip that opens right the way up and gives you a big stuff pocket in the corner here that you can stow that door away. So obviously it's not something you're going to want to do if the flies or the mozzies are out in numbers, but as you can see, it really opens up the space that you've got inside the tent here and brings that sort of outside natural world into your camping space. So moving on to the inside of the tent, the flooring here is also a polyester, and that has a waterproof rating of 5,000 mil, so it's quite a highly water resistant floor. You can see we've also got the seam sealing here and the seam tape along where all of our stitching is, and all of our stitching points at the floor as well. So the floor itself is a bucket floor, which means it's got a lip or an edge that comes up above ground level. That just keeps the seam well off the ground. If you do happen to be experiencing a lot of wet weather, there's no sort of water sitting right against an edge seam along the edge of the floor there. Now the walls continue to have seam sealing around the windows up until the point that it's now well and truly covered by the fly. So anything on this bottom half here of that window section which isn't covered by that fly cap has that full seam sealing, just to be 100% on the safe side. And you'll have that same sort of water sealing down here in your corners as well, up until about maybe a half or a third of a point of the way along the walls. Now the window itself has the solid panel on the inside with that fixed mesh panel on the outer. Now, whilst Zempire don't say no seam mesh or anything like that, you can see it's a very, very fine hold mesh there, which I think, you know, midgies are going to have a bit of a hard time getting through there. Although obviously, you know, you can't really say anything is fully midgie proof. But tucking our windows away as well, we can see we've also got these awesome little toggles and bungee loops here. And the additional thing about the windows, which is really cool, is the depth of the window itself goes a fair bit lower than the point of the zip. So if you do happen to experience any sort of rain and maybe you want to open up your window, any rain that's coming through that mesh and hitting this fly is going to be caught along that bottom edge of the window here, which is well and truly underneath where you're going to have your window opened up for the inside of the tent. Now on the back corner, we've got our 3 large storage pockets. And the rear door of the tent here is a solid. So we don't have that mesh barn door, but we do have the full zero zip or fully opened zip here that we can stash away in the pocket. Again, on this side of the tent, the window is mirrored with the same sort of level of seam ceiling in the corners and along up the walls and around the window as well. And in that front section there, we've got the diagonal mirror of our 3 big storage pockets. At the base here, in the bottom corner to the side of the door, we have our power access point for running any extension cords or power cords that you have, whether you be at a powered side or from your solar panel 12-volt system. So from your power access point running up this front seam, we've got a couple of Velcro loops here, and these essentially act almost like a zip tie really, where they loop back in on themselves and you can tighten and tension them off. All the way through to the center here where we have our webbing strap. It's quite heavy duty, it's really stitched and sewn in there, so you can have a fair amount, like I'm pulling down on that with quite a fair amount of force, so there's no question about hanging a heavy lantern or anything like that in there. And that's also got a quick release buckle as well, which helps. Now we've got these 4 big open mesh panels on the roof, and a really common question we get about tents is, well, if there's mesh panels on the roof, is that going to mean that it's colder? Well, the reality is tents aren't warm. They're not really insulative anyway. So whether or not you have mesh or normal material panel on the top is not going to make a real difference to your temperature. But what it is going to make a massive difference to is any condensation issues as well as ventilation. So having these big mesh panels here is a really important feature. Now at the peak of the inner tent here, we've got a height of 190 centimeters. The floor width going from side to side is a little bit over 3 meters. And then running from front to back, we've got 2.65 or 265 centimeters in length. So I've got a couple of mats here. I've got a Zempire Monster Mat Duo and a Zempire Single, and we're going to test out how they fit in the tent. So both of these mats are around the 2 meter mark in length, like 200 centimeters in length. And if I lay them out here like so this is just the single mat. This one is around 69 centimeters wide. Our twin mat here is 132 centimeters wide. So as you can see, we've got ample space here to put in another single mat or potentially even a second twin mat. And you'd still have a little bit of walkway room between the mats and a little bit of foot room at the end. So in this sort of configuration, we're talking camp mats. You can see realistically, we're looking at 4 people, even though this is technically a 6-person tent. If we rotate the mat around this way, whilst we don't have a second twin mat with us, this seam ceiling on the floor here marks the halfway point between the front and the back door. And you can see it also aligns with that halfway peg point, seam point on the outer edge of the tent as well. So we can definitely fit in, only just, but we can definitely fit in a second twin mat here. So if you are a family of 4, maybe you just want to have 2 twin mats and you can have a nice big bank of mattresses for sleeping. That's going to allow you to have this whole section of the tent here freed up for gear storage or changing room space or anything like that. So you could also have your twin mat and then again another single mat at the foot here, which would increase your sleeping space to 5. But again, you're going to be chewing up almost all of your floor space. If you were going to use maybe some narrower, potentially even tapered mats, more like a hiking style mat, you could get up to 6 people in here. But again, if you're taking this sort of tent with you, you're obviously a car camper, so you're not really going to be wanting to sacrifice your sleeping comfort for the sake of potentially getting an extra 5th or 6th person in here. So that's about it for the features of the Zempire Aerospeed 6. It's a super good looking, very lightweight, compact family tent that's super quick and easy to put up as well. You can get this at snows.com.au at our low prices every day.